Oh, there we go.
I would like to call the Government Operations Committee to order. Can I please have a roll call?
Fessner,
Here.
Weber,
Here.
Sokaitis,
Here.
Folks,
Here.
Bungard,
Here.
Munns, here, Lencioni, Gem,
Here.
Petrella,
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Wonderful. First up, we have the omnibus vote. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Moved by Petrilla, seconded by Munns. Roll call, please.
Fessner,
Yes.
Sokaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Bungard,
Yes.
Munns, yes, Lencioni,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Next up, we have a presentation by John Rabchuk, I believe. How are you going to make a presentation?
That's all I was going to do is say that John Rabchuk was here from the River Corridor Foundation to do a presentation regarding the East Bank Enhancement Project. So with that, I will turn it over to John.
Perfect.
I can dance for one. Okay. Well, if you remember, it's been almost a year. The River Corridor Foundation came to the City Council with kind of a unique proposal, and that is in our mission to enhance and both the Fox River itself and also the shoreline, and to encourage people to have more access to it, etc. That we focused our attention a couple years ago on an area just to the west of Langham Park along the river, and we, along with the St.Charles Park District and yourselves, we did some major enhancements there in terms of new benches and a step down into the river for kayakers can get on board on a limestone walkway, and all new trash cans, etc. So following that, we came up with an idea of another section of the river along the same side, the east side of the river, from the Piano Factory Bridge up to Illinois Street. If you'll recall, and I know many of you walk that way or have seen it, it's someone years ago decided that the way to support the bank was through piling up all the broken concrete in town. And that worked pretty well for doing that, although I noticed the other day that the north end of that up against Illinois Street is falling apart. It's fallen down into the river. There's no access points at all. There's no anglers I've seen there. It's a fairly decent fishing area, I know from personal knowledge, but they got to crawl across the concrete, and it's not good. The bicycle trail, the Fox Valley Trail, runs through there. It's very narrow. It's right up against the roadway, so up against Riverside Drive. So we thought maybe that was an opportunity for major enhancement along the riverfront. So the proposal we made was that River Corridor would pay for having a concept plan done to address those issues and more, and that that once we had a concept, we'd bring it back to you and also to the Park District and say, if we find the money to build this, will you build it and support it? Some of the money eventually for the construction is going to have to come probably from the state and federal government, but we think we can align that and get it ready to go and for your approval, at that point in time. But we got a couple of steps to get there. One other thing I forgot to mention in terms of a problem, an issue with that stretch of the riverfront is that at both the north end up against Illinois Street and also where the Piano Factory Bridge comes in, very, very tight conditions. So if you have any more than 2 bicycles or a couple of baby carriages, etc., they're spilling out onto the street. So we think that there's a way to address that and make it a lot safer. And it's, that stretch of the riverfront is used by somewhere, one of the estimates that was done by, for a different purpose a couple of years ago said like 90,000 people a year come across that stretch of the river. With that, I don't know, do we have the drawings or?
Yeah, that was exactly what the door plan was. I think he's working on it now.
An
So
accidental.
I'll try and do it with shadows. Another one of the issues there is that that constrains things a bit is that the Commonwealth Edison power lines come through there. So there's poles every, I don't know, 150 feet or whatever, 100 feet. And those are right in the middle of things, so that complicates stuff quite a bit as well. So we thought that there was a way to address that and came up with a concept plan. So we hired a local firm, WBK Engineering, and there was a committee appointed with representatives from then on the city council. Rita Payleitner was one, and Bob Calmeric. Who's the other? Just the two. As well as from the Park District representation. We put this together, and then we also, once we had some preliminary drawings, we also took it to a group of the neighbors in that area so that they could make comments, which they made some very good comments and helped us, redesign that stretch a bit. One of the ideas we originally had was that we thought we could squeeze in 2 trails along there. So one, if you would, for bicyclists or, maybe faster moving, and one for slower moving pedestrian traffic, et cetera. We looked at that real hard and came up with a number of drawings for it, but it just doesn't work. The only way to make it work would be to do what we call a road diet. So if you can think of Route 31 down in Batavia, the lanes are about a foot narrower than normal. It would have to be like a 2-block strength or length to do that, and we didn't think that that was part of our mission. We really wanted to stay on the west side of Riverside Drive and not do anything else from that perspective. So the drawings that you can't see reflect not only a widening of the trail, and also in one particular area we were able to squeeze in a secondary trail, if you would, so a bypass, so if there's some traffic on there that people can get around each other. We have a big plaza at the north end up against Illinois Street, and that's probably what is it, Jim? Probably 40 feet by 20 feet. Is that up against Illinois? Yeah, in that kind of range. So plenty of room for families to congregate, et cetera. We also put in a little jetty, just kind of like you're going to do it now? Okay. I don't know how to do that. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, that was amazing.
Okay, so if you look at this drawing, you'll see at the far lower left-hand corner is the plaza area that we envision up against Illinois Street. And then the path is moved off of Riverside Drive. There's a green space there. And then the pathway itself is designed to mimic the Bob Leonard walkway in front of the brownstone, so same kind of treatment on the path, much wider than what our current path is like. You'll notice, too, that there's a bump out into the river to create a slower area in the water where people could get in if necessary. At the far right end in the drawing is where the Piano Factory Bridge comes in. And we spent quite a bit of time looking at doing a plaza there, too, because that's really a bad intersection. People come across on a bike, and it's a hard T, and if there happens to be somebody else there, it's a mess. But offsetting that is the fact that we know that Piano Factory Bridge has been declared insufficient, so it needs to come down and be replaced at some point in time. It's been in the city's long-term plans to do that, but I don't think any money's ever been allocated for it. But we thought that designing a plaza there without knowledge of what that new bridge might look like was could be a waste of money, and so I spent time on doing that. All of the broken concrete along that stretch would be replaced with limestone blocks, much like over on the Bob Leonard Walkway or in front of Eden on the river, kind of a thing. So it'd be a much more pleasant thing. We think that there's some money readily available to us from a grant source, that all of that green space that's shown on there, that we could do some native plantings and probably some benches, and get that funded separately. We have identified quite a bit of money for completion of the construction drawings, because we think that there's money at the state and federal level that would fund the construction if we can have improved shovel-ready documentation. So the idea here is, will the city bless this and say, yes, if you can find the money and lead us to the gold pot, will you build this as shown? And we're going to present the same thing to the Park District here a week from tomorrow for their blessing as well. Because right now this is city property, but it's maintained by the Park District, so that's the two entities that are involved in it, which is the same as what we did on Langham. Any questions?
Any questions right now? Go ahead, Ed.
Is the Park District, excuse me, an equal partner in this then?
Well, actually, the only people that have skin in the game at this point is River Corridor.
Okay.
There's no city money. We're not asking for any city money. There are some grants that we have identified that we think will help with the actual construction that may involve city, like some CMAP stuff that a governmental body has to be involved with. But we can do a lot of the work to kind of line things up and get it ready to go.
And when you say grants for construction, does that include materials or just for construction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little shy of $1 million is the guess to build that stretch out.
Okay.
So it's it's not a huge amount of money. It's not like the Francis Key Bridge, but it's an important, and for us $1 million is a lot. But
thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
What happened to the cantilever plan? And I didn't know if that was just a pie-in-the-sky plan at one point, or you're playing with different ideas. I know that was the last time that I believe that we'd seen something before this.
we looked at that, and the cantilever would be very expensive, much more so than this would be. And we would also need to get Army Corps permission and do some, so it just got way too complicated pretty quickly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is this plan close to being ready and something that you are looking imminently to do with any kind of approval?
Well,
or
I mean, you're looking at 150 worth of engineering to design it. I mean, this is just concept drawings. And so our immediate goal is to fund that. So we have some grant applications in that we think, will get us pretty close to that 150. Once we have that done, then we're shovel ready. At that point in time, then there's some money available with IDOT or IDNR and some of the other sources around that we think might fill in the gap there and let us get this thing built. But it was a way just to kickstart the process, all of us in town that have looked at it say, why couldn't this look like the other side of the river that's been so improved, et cetera, now with the new First Street Plaza or expanded First Street Plaza. This was in dire need of some attention. So.
Go ahead, Ryan.
John, how does the future of the dam impact a project like this?
Probably not at all. The only thing that this does do is one of the items to consider about, and I know you're on the task force as I am relative to the dam, but this would kind of lead to putting a pathway down underneath Main Street, just to the north. We have not done any engineering from that perspective. There's room to do that. We would, obviously there's a private landowner involved there too that would have to give us some permission, et cetera. And undoubtedly we would need to work in conjunction with the IDNR for that. But in terms of the dam itself, I really don't think, this is personal knowledge, I'm not an engineer, that if the dam was to come out, that everything south of Main Street I don't think would change much at all. If the Geneva Dam came out, there might be a little bit lower water, but it's quite a ways away. Impact, I think, would be minimal. Do you agree, Jim?
Right.
I don't think anything south of the dam will change.
It's the same amount of water. You know, we think that, if the dam was to come out, the river would narrow enough where the two middle arches here would be filled, I mean, that'd be the river, and the other stuff to the either side would be buildable or usable, or, you know, certainly in high water conditions, it might change a bit. I think the floodplain here only goes to the edge, the western edge of Riverside Drive, if I remember correctly. So there's no division. I mean, we've never had water onto, that I know of, onto Riverside Drive itself. It's come close, but I don't think it's flooded over. There's some residents here, maybe they know different. But anyway, it's compatible with other stuff going on, so it wouldn't interfere with that.
Go ahead, Jamie.
John, you mentioned that you had gotten some input from residents. What kind of input did they provide on this?
Well, you know, we showed them some drawings that had the double path kind of thing, and with the road diet, and they didn't like that very much at all. We also thought that there might be room for a drop-off point in that triangular piece, you know, that's there between, what is that, Indiana and Ohio or something? That people utilizing the path, we thought, and we had drawings to reflect a pull-out where people could pull one or two cars just temporarily and take bicycles off their roof or off the back, and then go park someplace else, but then have the bicycles there. And it would also improve the ADA accessibility. And the ADA stuff is still something that's in the air a little bit. One of the major sources of grants that we're hoping to get, ADA is one of the top priorities. And so, you know, personally, I think it's the wrong place for somebody who's physically handicapped, if their condition or such, to try and get into the river. There's a lot of issues with that. But on the other hand, this group that we think that money would come from is willing to say, let's try it, you know. So we'll see what happens from that perspective. But we took that out of the plans, and again, as I mentioned earlier, we said our proposal to you originally and to the Park District was that we would stay to the west of Riverside Drive. So we left everything out, you know, that could be to the east. There could be other enhancements. There could be, you know, a different intersection where the Piano Factory Bridge comes across to tie together with those streets. But we left everything out that didn't pertain to that.
Thank you.
John, when did you say you were meeting with the Park District?
A week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow?
Yeah. They'll get exactly the same presentation. You know, so we're asking, I don't know, and I can talk to Heather about it, but maybe some kind of letter or whatever that says, you know, that you endorse the plan, and maybe we'll just wait until we run into somebody who says that they need, you know, the official city blessing to go ahead with it.
Yeah, definitely give us feedback from the Park District meeting. Let us know how that goes for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've been working at this a long time. You and the whole River Corridor Foundation. We've seen, you know, multiple plans. So I mean, let us know what else you need from us to help you guys. So.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just on that would be, to your point, Alderman Weber, is that for the grant applications, John, I know you said they're in progress. Would they need city approval or city consent?
Not the ones we're looking for at this point, because all we're looking for is the engineering, not the actual construction. We can't really ask. It's very difficult to ask for construction dollars until you're shovel ready. A lot of the federal money, state money, et cetera, and so we have to have construction drawings that says exactly how many tons of limestone, what kind of materials used, you know, what's the you know, how are you going to control erosion, da da da.
Okay. So you have to answer those questions first with engineering before you go any further.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Any more questions up here? Go ahead, Mark.
So you think $1 million and no city money?
We're not asking for city money. We'll see if we can pull it off. I'm not guaranteeing anything.
There you go.
You know anybody?
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have item 6A, Chief Keegan is going to make a presentation.
Good evening. So item 6A is a recommendation to approve a resolution for the contract and license agreement with AID, which is the Association for Individual Development, for 1 year. Especially for some of the new council, I'll just kind of give a brief overview of our program and then answer any questions you might have. So this is the 10th year that we've entertained a contract with AID. Each year we negotiate a 1-year contract that accounts for a full-time social worker housed in the police facility that also is a liaison between the police department, fire department, and community development. We also have a 24/7 on-call system referred to as victim services. So should a social worker be needed any time of the day or night, 365 days a year, we can utilize that as well. This past year in 2023, we had just shy of 600 cases. So I've seen this program grow exponentially in my tenure. Funding for this program has historically been done through our 708 board, and that's via a grant. This also includes office space for the social worker, and really for the newer council members and some in the audience of what our 708 board is and where that funding is derived from. So a tax is assessed on taxpayers in St. Charles, both homeowners and business owners, for a mental health program. Part of that program enables the city to fund various social service groups throughout the community. The police department has been funded in this venture for the last 10 years through varying amounts. Last year in particular, the 708 board funded the entire program. We typically account for about $700,000, give or take, in tax revenue each year, and the money that I'm asking for this year is about 10% of that. The councils are really the operations committee purview is really the approval of the license agreement, not per se the funding. That'll actually happen through the 708 board first, and then they come back to the city council for final approval and ratification. So when this program was initiated, we sought a legal opinion from our city attorney at the time, which was John McGurk. Most municipalities fund this program via the townships, so it's very rare that cities actually bring in the funding and have a local 708 board. This was enacted probably, I think, in the early 80s, if my memory serves me correctly, by the city, right around the time we were either home rule or before we were home rule. So it's been in place for quite a few years. But once again, mostly throughout Chicagoland, townships administer this, and a lot of those townships do fund police programs, school programs, and in fact, not only has my program been funded, but also some programs within School District 303. So with that, I can answer any questions you might have about the license agreement, and then if obviously the 708 board and what the grant entails.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Go ahead, Ed.
When will you hear from them?
The applications were due actually in March, and we typically will get an answer sometime early summer, and we go back to the city council through the committee sometime in the fall.
Has it been pretty consistent every year, or?
You know, last year they opted to fund the entire amount, which was, I believe, $70,000. We typically ask for full funding, and the methodology with that is this. If we don't ask the 708 board to fund our program, we're going to take that money out of the general fund. And my thought is that, you know, the taxpayers are paying for mental health services. The lion's share of those 600 calls that I talked about are mental health related, and our social worker is kind of the catalyst to farm out a lot of those referrals to the Ren Center, the Ecker Center, the Community Crisis Center, and those are some of the programs that we fund. But typically, they funded the program at varying amounts. We do budget for it, but any allocation from the 708 board does, enhance our budget because we can use those monies elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ryan.
I move for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Seconded by, moved by Bongard, seconded by Lencioni. Roll call, please.
Bessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Volk?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That passes. Next up, we have item 6B. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. That's a recommendation to approve use of Langham Park for the spring 2024 Train the Trooper event. Kim Millay is also here representing the event to answer any questions you might have. But the event takes place on Saturday, May 11th, once again at Langham Park. The focus of this is to train the troopers for the season. There's no road closures or any really use of city resources. I will add, there's a couple caveats to this request. They would like to fire the cannon every hour between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., so we'd have to put out some notices to local residents for that. And then in addition to that, the restroom facility that was built adjacent to our pumping station should be operational by that point, so that'll be a nice addition for the event. But Kim or myself can answer any questions you might have. This is really just the use of the park.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Moved by.
I just have a
You have a
question.
question? Go ahead, Brian.
So all the construction over there, is that going to be complete by the time this is ready to go?
I did talk to Himalayan Campaign Heritage Foundation. I did talk to Tim Wilson about construction. Basically, overall, it is for the most part complete. They're doing like paving and the blacktop. The bathrooms are all completed and ready. He is hoping, based on weather, that they'll be totally complete by that point. Now, if it's not, as far as the blacktop goes and that type of thing, if you saw in my plan, I actually did call out that area just in case. We, at this point, are planning on doing all the parking up the top.
Okay.
Okay, so we've kind of already put the contingency in, and if that parking becomes available, then we're...
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Chief, how many people are going to be participating in this? Kim, okay, Kim. How many people are going to be participating in this?
So we usually have somewhere between 30 and 40 participants as far as reenactors. And then from there, we usually get somewhere around 100 to 150 people throughout the day. If you go pretty, smoothly through our parking and that type of thing, it gets tight down below, so everybody knows that this won't take part. We get a lot of walking and biking traffic, so.
Thank you. All right. So I have a motion by Lencioni and a seconded by...
I have a quick question.
Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Has anyone coordinated with the park district to find out if they have any softball games or if the building would be open? Okay.
Normally, we don't conflict. They usually start their season a little later.
Okay.
And it's pretty much held all the time around this time.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So, once again, I have a motion by Lencioni, seconded by Wirball. Roll call, please.
Bessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Yum?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Next up, we have public comment. Once again, just remember, there's another committee meeting after this where there will be a presentation with the IMEA. So if you have questions, please, or comments, please wait until that committee meeting. Any additional items from mayor, council, staff? I see none. No need for an executive session. I'm looking for a motion, a second to adjourn. Moved by Lencioni.
Second.
Seconded by Bessner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This meeting is adjourned.